Welcome to Time Well Spent, a podcast from LaborSync, the only real-time, multilingual timesheet software your business will ever need. So imagine paying a consultant, like $50,000, just to have them tell you what your newest apprentice already knew on his very first day.
Right, yeah. We see it happen all the time, honestly.
It happens constantly. Today we are looking at some insights from a recent LaborSync blog article to explore a completely different approach. We're talking about how your absolute best business diagnostic, which is feedback, is actually completely free.
It is. It's already on your payroll. But, so many managers just completely ignore it. They end up paying what the blog article calls the ignorance tax.
The ignorance tax, right.
Yeah, because, well, if you're a business owner looking at a quiet job site, your first instinct is usually just relief.
Oh, for sure. Like, nobody's complaining, the phones aren't ringing with problems, so you just naturally assume everything is running perfectly.
Exactly. But assuming team silence means everything is fine is, well, it's incredibly dangerous.
It's like ignoring a check engine light just because your car isn't making a loud clanking noise yet.
Right. The silence doesn't mean the engine is healthy. It just means the damage is still internal and it's compounding.
That is a really great analogy. In operations, a quiet crew rarely means you have a flawless process. What it usually indicates is that your team has just given up.
Oh, wow. Wait, really? Given up?
Yeah, they've hit a bottleneck so many times without management stepping in, so they just decide it's easier to create these inefficient workarounds than to try and bring it up again.
So you're basically training them to stop caring. And meanwhile, you are missing out on a massive competitive advantage. I mean, large corporations spend millions on consultants to shave maybe 2% off their operational costs.
Right, but your crew lives your processes every single day. They are essentially a free R&D department for your business. And if you don't tap into that operational R&D, they'll eventually just take that expertise to a competitor.
Okay, so if spoken feedback is this crucial R&D, what happens when the feedback isn't actually spoken out loud at all? Well, that's where silent data comes in. The most critical feedback you receive is often completely nonverbal. Like, think about GPS breadcrumbs.
You mean the actual operational data they generate while they are on the clock?
Yes, exactly. If your data consistently shows, say, a 5-person crew arriving 15 minutes late to a specific job site every Tuesday, that isn't just a scheduling glitch.
Right.
That is silent feedback. Maybe the route is terrible on Tuesdays, or they're waiting on a delayed materials delivery. But whatever the root cause is, you are silently bleeding an hour and 15 minutes of paid labor every single week.
Yeah, I can see how those man hours add up super quickly. But I want to push back a little bit on some of these smaller, seemingly trivial complaints the blog article brings up.
Okay, like what?
Well, like crews grumbling about using paper timesheets. If the actual job is getting done on the site, does modernizing a timesheet really move the needle, or is it just a minor administrative annoyance?
It absolutely moves the needle. It's what the article calls the paper tax, and it hits your bottom line in two compounding ways. First off, you have the rounding error.
Ah, like rounding up the clock out time.
Exactly. A crew finishes at 4:45 p.m., but they write down 5:00 p.m. You are paying for phantom time. And second is the administrative waste. Your office staff spends hours every Friday trying to decipher mud-stained, illegible handwriting instead of focusing on actual business growth.
That makes total sense. And from a psychological standpoint, there is a massive retention issue with Gen Z tradespeople, too.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, because if you hand a younger worker a paper timesheet, they don't just see a piece of paper. To them, 1990s tech signals a stagnant company that will probably cut corners on safety or training or career advancement. They simply won't stick around for that.
No, they won't. It's a huge red flag for them.
But wait, if I am tracking GPS routes, abandoning paper, and actively soliciting crew feedback, I feel like I'm going to drown in data.
Honestly, having 5 different data streams yelling at me sounds more paralyzing than the silence we started with. And it will be, unless you know how to separate the signal from the noise. You have to look for patterns instead of isolated incidents. Like, if one worker complains about a disorganized truck, you might just have a messy employee.
Sure, that happens.
But if 3 different crews are consistently delayed because they can't locate specific tools, now that is a systemic inventory failure. You're really looking for patterns that trigger 3 specific red flags.
And those red flags are labor creep, employee fatigue, and customer churn, right?
Yes, because they are all directly connected. That 15-minute daily delay we mentioned earlier creates labor creep. To make up for that lost time, the crew has to rush.
Right. And rushing leads to employee fatigue. And obviously, exhausted crews make mistakes, which ultimately leads to a subpar product and customer churn.
Precisely. The silence triggers the fatigue, and the fatigue costs you the client.
Wow. Which brings us to the ultimate solution, because
Wow.
you cannot be at every job site to manually connect these dots yourself.
Right, you need a system in place.
Yeah, the blog article emphasizes using digital platforms like LaborSync to turn that field silence into actionable reports. You use GPS tracking for route feedback, real-time clock-ins to catch that labor creep before it compounds, and field notes for direct updates. It transforms a really confusing operation into absolute clarity.
Because in business, the market doesn't reward effort. It rewards clarity.
So true. So I want you to look at your own operations today. Think about that check engine light. What process in your business is currently completely silent, and how much is that silence actually costing you?
That is the million-dollar question.
This episode of Time Well Spent was brought to you by LaborSync. Track employee hours and job site locations in real time from any device. Start your risk-free trial today at laborsync.com.